who are tuning in live. Thank you to everyone who is joining us and watching this recorded session. Thank you to the K-12 Workplace Wellbeing webinar series for hosting the session, and particularly the EdCan team for their Well at Work initiative, which is doing really great work, incredible work to make workplace well-being in K-12 education a top priority. Thank you for all that you do. Make sure to check out www.edcan.ca/wellatwork, WELLATWORK, if you haven't already. Thank you again to the EdCan team. Thank you everyone who is joining us as folks are trickling in. This is so exciting to see the attendees go up, and I am just so grateful again for this opportunity. My name is Dana Thomas, Dana like Dana Banana, and I'm the founder of Happy Teacher Revolution. I'm joining you from Baltimore, Maryland, and I am here in my home in quarantine, in self-isolation, but so grateful to be able to connect with all of you. And for our session today, I am going to introduce myself and my journey in creating Happy Teacher Revolution, a Baltimore-born international movement on a mission to organize and conduct support groups for educators in the field of mental health and wellness to increase teacher happiness, retention, and professional sustainability. I'll go over my work as a mental health advocate in the US, as well as my personal experience as an educator in Baltimore. And we'll dive into the data-driven, research-based practices of this social support network and the benefits of offering the opportunity for educators to support their own social-emotional learning in order to support the social-emotional learning of the students in their classrooms, which is really the foundation of our global movement, to support educators so that they can continue supporting the students that they work with. Then we'll have the opportunity to experience an opportunity of a Happy Teacher Revolution meeting, at least an excerpt of one, because I am so excited to connect with all of you and hear more about your own experiences and journeys in this work. We'll have an opportunity to reflect and synthesize this whole session. And then the big finale is the Happy Teacher Revolution music video that I'm really excited to share. And we'll have an opportunity for Q&A at the end of the session as well. So before we get started, I want to dedicate this session to a group of emotional first responders. I consider them first responders, and they're not nurses, they're not EMTs, they are in fact teachers, and they were my teachers. Because when I was in high school and college, I suffered from crippling anxiety and depression and panic attacks. I represented the statistic of 1 in 4 Americans who grapples with a mental illness, 1 in 5 college students in the US who's contemplated suicide. I represented the statistic that the onset of mental illness in the US most frequently occurs between the ages of 17 and 24. And Ms. Balderson recognized those subtle changes in behavior as warning signs. And Ms. Goro encouraged me to seek treatment and to get help. And Professor Orr and Professor Sampson provided life-saving differentiation and accommodation for me when I was in crisis. And without my teachers, I wouldn't be here with you today, connecting with educators all over Canada. This is so cool. And I am so grateful for all the work that you do, each and every one of you, in the lives that you've changed and the impact that you're making. Teachers saved my life, and they're the reason that I actually decided to become a teacher myself. And for 7 years, I served as a Baltimore City public school teacher. And I have to admit, I felt I was completely unprepared for the emotional demands of the job, specifically working with children who've experienced trauma firsthand. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. Welcome, welcome. Oh, this makes my heart just burst. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. And I have to admit, I felt unprepared for the emotional demands of not only the opportunity of working and teaching and living in Southeast Baltimore, but what I recognized was that so many teachers were feeling isolated and alone, stressed and anxious because of the nature of the work that we were in. And I, as an individual, very much felt that my personal healing was serving as an advocate for mental health awareness and speaking up and speaking out about something that is so incredibly isolating. And when I started talking more about my own journey and my own experience, so many educators, teachers, my friends, my colleagues came out to me about things that they were struggling with as it relates to the job, stress and anxiety as it relates to job. And these were teachers who taught down the hall from me, teachers I sat next to in my graduate school classes at Johns Hopkins University. These were individuals I sat across the table from at lunch during professional development. And the pattern that I started to see and I started to recognize was unbelievable because it was a common thread. And so many individuals had felt isolated and alone. And here I was hearing their stories. And what I recognized in Baltimore, unfortunately, wasn't unique to Baltimore alone, because based on research from the University of Missouri, in 93% of teachers they surveyed reported feeling, and these were teachers surveyed in the US, reported feeling overwhelming levels of stress. Now, in terms of the 3.6 million teachers in the US, if we apply this research to that population, that means that there could potentially be an estimated 3.3 million teachers who are stressed out. And all of this research and data was taken before COVID-19. And I'll be sharing additional research that we found that is more recent. But another piece is research coming from the University of British Columbia. And when I had the opportunity to meet these researchers in person at the Castle Conference, oh my gosh, I was fangirling like I was meeting rock stars. Because here's the research from the University of British Columbia. They've found that in taking biometric data and measuring the stress hormone that we call cortisol in saliva samples from teachers and that of their students, they found that educators with higher levels of cortisol have students with higher levels of cortisol, which means to say that stress is contagious. We also know that our educators in the United States are leaving at a rate of 50% each year. And because of this constant turnover and recruitment of new teachers, the estimated cost that the United States is spending alone is $7.3 billion every single year. And in my state of Maryland, we're in the bottom quintile, spending an estimated $100 million every single year in the constant recruitment and training of new teachers. So I wondered, how might we create the time and space for educators to heal, deal, and be real about the social, emotional, and intellectual demands that they face on the job? And our solution was the revolution. Happy Teacher Revolution was born in the 2014-2015 school year. And it started as a gathering of educators and evolved into an international global community of educators who believe that happy teachers equals happy kids. And what we found most recently is that there's incredible concerns over our teachers' wellness, especially after COVID-19. So before, in terms of teachers just self-describing their own mental health, 58% of educators describe their mental health as not good for the last 7 of the last 30 days. And 78% of educators say they feel mentally and physically exhausted at the end of the workday. Now, there's been a rise with 80% of teachers reporting feeling anxious, worried, exhausted, or depressed since the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis. And this information and research is from the EAB Research Foundation based out of the US. But what they found is that there is a spectrum in terms of supporting teacher self-care and wellness. That unfortunately, in terms of different teacher self-care strategies, there are often inconsistent. haphazard and maybe an article here or there, but not necessarily a systematized or ongoing way of offering support. In a more formal lens in the US, there are employee assistance programs, but unfortunately, they're often stigmatized, underutilized, and expensive. What Happy Teacher Revolution hopes to support are educators in a systemized, measured way to impact not only our educators and caregivers, but the students in which they work with. While this is what self-care usually looks like, and while I'm grateful, it's something that has very much been integrated into supporting our educators as whole people, just like we support the whole child. Unfortunately, the self-care strategies that are out there, they're cutesy and fun, but not necessarily impact-driven. And what Happy Teacher Revolution hopes to offer is an ongoing training to implement for educators to foster their own leadership and collective impact to create a safe, non-judgmental space to share experiences and challenges. It is non-clinical. This is not something in which individuals are receiving therapy, but rather a mindfulness space, as well as a space to offer fostering authentic human connection, affirmations, and practices of gratitude. So what I want to share with you from my work of starting Happy Teacher Revolution are my top 5 lessons learned from starting a global movement. Because we believe that happy teachers equals happy kids. I'm a big fan of top 5 countdowns, and I wanted to do something fun for all of you today. And I'm so grateful for the EdCan team for being open-minded and being willing to offer all of you an experiential learning opportunity online. And so grateful for the technology and tech practice. And there's going to be a big finale at the end. But first, we'll go back to the countdown. So the number 1 lesson from starting a global revolution. Self-care isn't selfish, the oxygen mask analogy. I want everyone to envision themselves on an airplane, which I know we haven't been on anytime soon and probably aren't going to be, but this is Happy Teacher Revolution Airlines, and you hear my voice come over the speaker as your flight attendant, announcing all educators, in the event of a change in pressure from colleagues, leadership, parents, stakeholders, community members, friends, please be advised that an oxygen mask might drop down from the ceiling. You must put the oxygen mask on yourself first before assisting children and those around you. Remember to breathe. Let's all breathe. Remember to breathe. We as educators, and I'm addressing everyone in terms of, in the language of Happy Teacher Revolution, the word teacher means anyone who is in a relationship-intensive caregiver capacity with that of a child. And one of my very favorite texts is The Resilient Practitioner, Burnout and Compassion Fatigue Prevention and Self-Care Strategies for Helping Professions. How does the opera singer take care of the voice? The baseball pitcher, the arm. The woodcutter, the axe. The photographer, the eyes. The ballerina, the legs and feet. The practitioner in a helping, caring, relationship-intense profession, the self. So one of my self-care strategies is playing music. I have been playing saxophone since the 4th grade. My inspiration in the 4th grade was Lisa Simpson, the cartoon character, and I've been playing ever since. She's still my inspiration. And when I'm getting ready to play and perform a gig, I have to make sure that my reed's not chipped, that my keys aren't sticky, that my saxophone is working properly so that I can play music. So let's see if this works. I have to make sure I take care of my instrument so that I can play Careless Whisper by George Michael. What is the instrument that you have to take care of for your profession? What's the instrument that you have to take care of? It's yourself, right? It's so important that we take care of our instruments. Yes, yay! Thank you all for letting me play saxophone. I have to admit to you. So when we were convening to go over the webinar, I approached the Workplace Wellbeing Webinar Series and EdCan team, and I said, hey, I have this awesome quote about taking care of your instrument. I would love to share one of my self-care strategies of playing my instrument to reiterate this importance of our educators taking care of themselves. And it was great because they had me audition. And so I auditioned. I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful it was well received. So thank you. And just think of the saxophone. If you're not taking care of yourself, just remember to take care of your instrument, because it is so, so important to make sure that you're prioritizing your self-care and wellness, taking care of your instruments so you can continue to sing your song, play music, and share your heart and joy with those that you serve. That was fun. Back to the countdown. Number 2. So one of the things that I had mentioned in terms of entering the classroom for the first time in Southeast Baltimore was working with children who've experienced trauma firsthand. And we know that trauma in a child's life can range from any number of things, whether it's losing a pet or losing a parent, moving neighborhoods or moving countries, experiencing a natural disaster, surviving a global pandemic, witnessing an act of gun violence, and any number of things in between. And one of the opportunities with Happy Teacher Revolution that I've been able to offer is to support educators in Miami-Dade after Hurricane Irma, as well as support educators right here in Baltimore after the Baltimore uprising. And the picture on the far left is a picture that I took of my students. This was a picture that was taken of my students in Baltimore. And this photo was taken the day after the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. And I believe that that moment was a moment that the world saw our educators as first responders. They saw our principals as first responders, our school counselors as first responders. It's something that I believe that we've always known, but in terms of teaching during a time where our students are being affected by trauma, but also our teachers can manifest in something called vicarious trauma, which is the experience of taking on trauma firsthand from working with individuals or populations who have experienced trauma themselves. In particular, in Baltimore, as a result of the rates of gun violence, the rates of PTSD are actually higher than that of our American soldiers who are coming home from overseas. And one of the things that is so important about Happy Teacher Revolution is remembering, naming, and affirming our educators if they have experienced things like caregiver burnout, compassion fatigue, or vicarious trauma. The third lesson learned from Happy Teacher Revolution is that the arts are necessary to survival. So I have to share with you that my saxophone and using the arts as a way to process, to heal, it is truly essential to our survival, and we must support and foster the arts in our communities. It breaks my heart that I taught at a school that did not have a music teacher. And I love music, and I studied music in college. And so what I ended up doing was integrating the arts into teaching reading and math and writing and transitioning and language. And my largest class, when I started Happy Teacher Revolution, I had 39 kindergartners. 26 of them were beginning language learners. And it was amazing to be able to have a student population with so many students who spoke English in addition to other languages, and we sang and we danced in multiple languages, and we created and made art. And I truly believe that the arts help my students to see pattern and recognize things when they were learning how to read. And it was so incredible to be able to also use poetry to foster an opportunity for not only my students to find their voice, but also for our educators. And so this is my plug for the arts, the global plug for the arts that is just so important that we celebrate and recognize the importance of. The fourth lesson learned from starting a revolution. So one of the most important parts of Happy Teacher Revolution is recognizing that supporting the social emotional learning of our educators is essential to good teaching. The circle you see on the left is the SEL, social emotional learning competencies based on the CASEL's framework. These are self-management, self-awareness, relationship skills, social awareness. And I have to admit, as an early childhood educator, and in the work that I did in studying at Johns Hopkins and data-driven education, SEL was absolutely emphasized and an integral part of the early childhood foundation. But what was so bizarre to me was how social emotional learning seemed to be neglected and not necessarily fostered or facilitated beyond early childhood, as if to say our first graders master it and it's no longer part of something to emphasize. At least this is my personal experience as an educator in Baltimore. And I thought to myself how bizarre it was to be working with grown-ups in my school buildings in Southeast Baltimore who hadn't necessarily mastered some of these things themselves, whether it was social awareness, self-awareness, or self-management. And unfortunately, based on research based on our educators in the US, an estimated 80% of teachers have experienced bullying. How are we supposed to teach students not to bully one another if there are grown-ups bullying one another in some of our school buildings? Happy Teacher Revolution offers an opportunity for our adults to support their own social emotional learning because our students are so brilliant in seeing what we're modeling to them. What are we modeling in terms of our relationship skills and our self-management, especially during times when we aren't in person with one another? And SEL, we're finding as well, is such a valued competency in terms of future employers. And so this is something that my students honestly have taught me about myself. And I'll go into that in a little bit. But in so many ways, Maslow's hierarchy of needs that you see on the right is exactly the same. And so what I've learned from my students is, if they're too thirsty or too tired or too hungry, if they don't feel safe, we're not going to reach those higher levels of learning, that self-actualization. But the same thing applies to the adults in school buildings as well. If we're too hungry, if we're too tired, if we're too thirsty, if we don't feel safe, we're not going to reach those higher levels of self-actualization either. And number 5, everything that I needed to know about self-care, I learned in kindergarten. Just like I said, my kindergartners taught me the importance of play, of laughter, of dancing, of music, of getting outside and getting moving. They taught me the importance of going to the bathroom when I need to go to the bathroom, right? That's like the basics of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And I have to admit that when I was not prioritizing my basic self-care and my basic needs, I wasn't the best version of Miss Thomas for my students. When I wasn't allowed to take care of Dana, I wasn't the best version of Miss Thomas for my students. So I might have started the day as Mary Poppins that you see on the left, but I ended the day as Cruella de Vil. It aged me. That's me on the 100th day of school, we all dress like we were 100 years old. But honestly, my students have taught me so much about the importance of self-care. And it's something that I have to remember and remind myself of often. And they're truly my inspiration. They're the reason that I've continued to advocate full-time for the happiness of our educators. They were my inspiration in the 2014-2015 school year when I started Happy Teacher Revolution. And I have to share with you that while this revolution is positive and optimistic, and my face literally hurts, I'm smiling so much reading all of your chat comments. It's just, I want to save all of them. I want to print them all out and put them on my wall because it brings me so much joy to be able to offer this and share the work that we've been doing. But to be honest, this started from a place of darkness and desperation. And I know we are in a time of darkness and desperation. And I started Happy Teacher Revolution when I had 39 kindergartners. And I would go into a building that was filled with asbestos, and the water was filled with lead. And this derelict building had a vibrant staff of teachers and kiddos and community members. But yet I would have to go in and clean off the mice droppings from my students' pencil boxes in the mornings. And I would microwave my lunch in the teacher's lounge when I couldn't tell the seconds that were left in the microwave because of the roaches that were crawling in front of the numbers. And I would stay late until 9 o'clock at night with the custodial staff. And I would drive home, and I was not eating nutritionally. I was not getting 8 hours of sleep. I was not drinking enough water. I was staying up late, scrolling on my phone, looking at why in the world, in the United States, are there policies around limiting the sizes of daycares, but not kindergarten classrooms. And I would drive to this building again the next morning to work for an administration that was unfortunately harassing female teachers in the building on the staff who weren't tenured because we were too scared to speak up. And I didn't feel supported. I felt alone. But I realized I looked to my left and I looked to my right to fellow educators. And I thought to myself, well, at least we have each other. And that's where we'll start. And that's where the revolution began. And now it's gone global. And to have the opportunity to share this with all of you, incredible educators across Canada, has been such an amazing opportunity. And I'm pinching myself because it's just started as the concept of a kindergarten teacher in Southeast Baltimore. And with the work and collaboration of Johns Hopkins University, in 2019, we were the winners of the Johns Hopkins Social Innovation Lab. And so with the funding and encouragement from Johns Hopkins, we've been able to scale and to grow. And it has been so incredible and affirming to receive the support from this community that teachers do matter, that teachers are not renewable resources, and that teacher mental health matters. The revolution is a revolution in a way of thinking and approaching how best to support our students. Because as the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. But I'm wondering who's taking care of the village, because we believe that our happy teachers equals happy students, that if we can support the individuals who are surrounding our kiddos, that is better for all of us. It has a ripple effect outwards. And I would love to invite all of you to participate in an experiential learning opportunity. And this is something that we utilize in our Happy Teacher Revolution meetings. These are the 12 choices. So these are originally adapted from an article by Vicki Davis titled 12 Choices to Step Back from Burnout. And in our Happy Teacher Revolution meetings, we utilize the 12 choices that I'm going to read aloud. I choose to be happy. I choose to disconnect and detach with love. I choose to be mindful. I choose to make time for sleep. I choose to get outside and get moving. I choose to be grateful. I choose what to overlook. I choose the battles worth fighting. I choose what to do next time and what to stop doing. I choose to enjoy the relationships that matter. I choose to schedule and prioritize what really matters. And no matter how the school year started, I choose to finish well. I invite you to reflect on one of these 12 choices. Which one jumped out to you? Which one is your, whoa, either this year, this month, this week, today, this hour, right now? I invite you to share which of the 12 choices is resonating with you right now. Amazing. I choose what to overlook. Yes. No matter how the school year started, I choose to finish well. Yes. Yes, I choose to disconnect. Oh my gosh, that's the one for me too. Yes, it has been hard. Yeah, I choose to be grateful. Wow, thank you. Yes, love. Yes, yes, yes. I choose the battles worth fighting. Yes, I choose to get outside and get moving. I love it. Yes, the disconnect and detach with love. And that particular one is very much one that is grounded in trauma-informed practices. One of our Happy Teacher Revolution pilot sites in the Nashville metro area in Nashville, Tennessee, has truly incorporated this particular practice. They've even printed these 12 choices out, and their teachers hang them in their next to their desks, and they hung them out in the hallways as folks were leaving the building, just as a reminder that we have these are opportunities for us to choose. So hard. Choose to disconnect is so hard for many, but so necessary for self-care. Yes, could not agree more. Exactly. And oh, yes, I love that Melanie created her own choice. Thank you. Yes, create your own. Yes, here's one that I would love. Here's mine. I choose to set boundaries. I choose to set boundaries. Yes. Yes, I choose to every day. I choose to disconnect. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Oh, great question. So detach with love. So it is up to each individual's interpretation. It can be literal or figurative. It can actually mean to turn off and power down. So this cell phone, I think about this cell phone all the time because I think to myself, I will charge this when I'm at 97% just to get an extra 3% out of it. And when I'm not charging my phone and the battery starts to go down and it starts to, glitch out and act wonky and, oh my gosh, 12%, 10%, 7%, single digits, it starts to glitch out. And so I think about sometimes how I take care of my cell phone better than I take care of myself. I recharge this more than I charge this. I'm more connected here than I am with my own needs and just tuning in, holding space to quiet down. I did a meditation practice yesterday, and I didn't even realize until I held that moment to sit that, oh my gosh, I'm carrying tension in my neck and my shoulders. And I'm like, why do I care more if this is charged and taken care of than me? And so I challenge all of you to think about what are you plugged into? What are you connected to? What are you attached to? What are you holding space and time for? So disconnecting and detaching with love for me meant deleting the notifications about work email from my phone because it was going, I couldn't I felt like I was totally connected and on all the time, that I needed to actually carve out practices to either turn off notifications or power off. An alarm that I used to wake up, I set an alarm to turn off and detach. And another ways for opportunity for me to disconnect and detach with love is I found myself just sort of carrying the stories and the negativity, home with me after I left the school building. And this was, before COVID, but it was something I literally would carry it home and it would sit with me and I would ruminate. And I felt like I never had the chance to turn off. And even stories of just things that, the first time I had to call Child Protective Services because I recognized signs of abuse in one of my students, and I couldn't stop thinking about it and that child, and will they be in school the next day, and what's going to happen, and are they going to transfer schools, and is the number going to change? It's something that I couldn't turn off in that way as well. But what ended up happening was then the version of myself I would bring to school the next day wasn't the best version of myself that I could offer all of my students. And so for me, it's not just necessarily powering down from or disconnecting from here, but also code switching of, okay, I'm hanging up the title of Miss Thomas, and now I'm Dana. Just like a doctor hangs up their white lab coat, transitioning into the role of personal life. And it can be incredibly challenging now because I think with COVID and being quarantined, that there's been an inability to segment our lives. It's upended our ability to segment our lives. And so I think it's really important that we build in practices where we can disconnect and detach so we can bring our fullest self. Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for all of these shares. This is wonderful. So this was so great. I'm so grateful for everyone who's been engaging and commenting and chatting and asking questions. I wasn't sure how engaged the group will be, and this has truly been amazing. So I would love to invite you to consider additional questions for the Q&A at the end. But for right now, I am going to premiere our Happy Teacher Revolution anthem. This is our first premiere in Canada, and I am so grateful to share my inspiration, which are my students. So these are my students, and we filmed a music video in West Baltimore, and it was amazing because it was a big surprise. I surprised my students with a local Baltimore rock band who came in and set up their instruments during lunch. And as my students were transitioning from the cafeteria, they heard the music and they thought, oh, is that coming from our classroom 108? And as they walk in, they see the rock band, and we had an amazing time. And so I just want to share with all of you, my community, my whole heart. This is the Happy Teacher Revolution music video. is a Baltimore-born international movement with a mission to organize and conduct support groups for teachers in the field of mental health and wellness to increase teacher happiness, retention, and professional sustainability.
My name's Dana, and I'm a proud survivor of mental illness. When I was in high school and college, my teachers were my heroes who saved my life. And now I've started a revolution, a happy teacher revolution. We're not a therapy group because I'm not a doctor, and my only expertise is my experience. And we're not AA because you are allowed to drink afterwards, but we're something different. We're a social support network of educators coming together to connect, to empathize, to listen, and to feel heard. If you're interested in starting a meeting in your community and joining the revolution, check out happyteacherrevolution.com.
I'm so glad you liked it. I realized I had the same sweater on and I am not glammed up. My eyes are welling, and so I'm glad I didn't wear any mascara. Oh, that was so great. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. So if you'd like to find out more, this is my contact information at Happy Teacher Revolution. Our website is happyteacherrevolution.com. And I would also love to invite you for a final reflection, and a practice that we do in our Happy Teacher Revolution meetings is to offer an affirmation in the chat. So share something that you're proud of yourself for. Share something you're grateful for. Share something you forgive yourself for, or maybe something that you had the courage to do. So I'm proud of myself for, I forgive myself for, I recognize the courage it took for me to. Yes, I'm proud of myself for recognizing and setting my limits. Woo! Yes. And that, you know what? I need to share that, because here's the thing is, when else do we have an opportunity to celebrate one another when we set limits, when we set boundaries, right? There are so many times that educators say, yes, of course, that we go outside of our job description. What job description? We say yes to everything. And here's the thing is, we can't say yes to everything. You can do everything, but you can't do it all at once, right? And so we have to celebrate one another when we set boundaries and set limits. Yes, I forgive myself for my own self-doubt. Oh my gosh, I'm proud of myself for speaking this loud. I needed to read that one. Wow. I'm proud of myself for detaching today and attending this webinar instead of being online for my students. Yes, because here's the thing is, when you pour into yourself, it has a ripple effect outward, right? To not only your students, but to your family and your community. Just like there can be ripple effects of negativity as well. Positivity can work the same way, but it starts when we take care of ourselves. I'm proud of myself for recognizing my triggers and walking away from them to do something that helps me with my anxiety. Oh my gosh, that is huge. That level of self-awareness, because the piece before self-care is self-awareness. Absolutely. And I am so proud of you for recognizing that. Yes, to look in the light and goodness of others. Absolutely. Wow, these are amazing. Thank you all so much. Wow. So this has been a little taste of Happy Teacher Revolution. And again, my name is Dana Thomas, and I am so grateful for everyone who's participated, who's tuned in live, who's watching the recording. And I am, again, so grateful to the EdCan team and the entire Well at Work initiative, because I truly believe that this is visionary and important work. So thank you all. I would love to invite you to continue participating in the chat and offering affirmations. And thank you all for your courage and vulnerability in sharing as well. And we are happy to take questions at this point too. So the question mode has been enabled. Perfect. Yes, I'm proud of myself for talking with some supports about way over prepping and taking some corrective action. Amazing. Do you have examples of disconnect and detach practices? Great question. So one of the things I mentioned was setting an alarm to turn off, just like we set an alarm to wake up in the morning. One of the things that I've started doing, one of the things I did as a teacher was my teacher lanyard with my teacher ID. I would hang it up at the end of the day. And that was sort of my cue, my visual cue for myself that I was transitioning from work to personal. Sometimes I would change clothing, and that would be another shift for disconnecting and detaching. Some of the disconnecting and detaching practices were deleting certain apps from my phone. And another were setting boundaries of when I am available and when I'm not. So like whether it's in an email autoresponder, sort of giving the time blocks that you are available to answer emails or questions or phone calls or connect with folks. That's something that I've heard a lot of educators struggling with is feeling like they have to be like connected all the time. When it's like being connected to not only their students' needs with the digital learning, but also their leadership, but also parents who are struggling with technology. And so I think that's just really important is communicating like where those boundaries are and knowing that you don't have to be like plugged in all of the time. What does detach with love mean? Yeah. So it's interesting because in the original article by Vicki Davis, the choice she offered was disconnect and detach. And I offered the piece with love because for me, it is coming from a place of love. Like I love this work so much and I love my students so much that I have to turn down or shut off and power down in order to be the fullest version of myself the next morning. What I found that I was doing was like, I was staying up late lesson planning, prepping, assembling things, uploading, doing all of that. Then I was putting the demand on myself that it all had to be Pinterest perfect because I was comparing myself to all these teachers and bloggers with the Pinterest perfect classroom and everything looked adorable. And then I wasn't lesson planning or meal planning for myself, and I wasn't prioritizing my health and wellness data. I was prioritizing my students and the work demands. And what ended up happening was then I wasn't able to respond with patience in the moment when I needed to be flexible. Because that is truly that opportunity to respond from a place of love when working with students in the moment who have experienced trauma firsthand or might be experiencing ongoing trauma. I didn't want to add to that trauma because an escalated grown-up cannot de-escalate a child. And so disconnecting and detaching was essential for me to invest that time and energy to recharge myself. So that when I was in stressful moments that I was responding from a place of love. I choose to prioritize my legacy. What will be most important to me at retirement? Yes. So this is huge because I believe in the professional sustainability of educators. I think that our veteran teachers are so underappreciated for all that they've done and especially in terms of their unofficial and official mentorship for our new teachers coming in. And so when we think about our legacy, exactly like what is your vision for myself? For me personally, like my legacy is to impact the lives of students by supporting the mental health and wellness of their teachers around the world. And so I challenge all of you to just consider, like, take a moment to consider, like, what is your legacy? What is the impact that you hope to make to help others? What's important to you? And we offer opportunities in Happy Teacher Revolution where we talk about, what are your personal principles? Not that of your principal, but what are your individual principles? And aligning yourself with those. That can be incredibly helpful. Can you give suggestions for how to engage teachers who think this well? Oh yeah. Like this is like the fluffy stuff, right? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, trust me, I've been there. Yeah. And I come in and of course, I walk in talking about we're going to start a revolution, and I'm wearing like bell bottoms and I have long hair, and it's like, who is this hippie lady? But really, it is based in research because what we found is that, so this is research from the University of Arizona, has found in surveying a group of U.S. teachers, and they found that they've been able to connect in this particular study teacher depression to low student math scores. And also the Child Study Center, Yale Child Study Center, researched job satisfaction, burnout, and stress in early childhood educators in the U.S. and found that teachers who are stressed and unhappy are more likely to suspend or refer their students to the office. And not only that, but they are doing so at a predominantly higher rate for boys more than girls and for students of color. So if we're not supporting the mental health and wellness of teachers, we're perpetuating the school to prison pipeline, at least based on this research from the Yale Child Study Center. And so it's not something fluffy, like teacher happiness matters, job satisfaction matters. Google has invested in the happiness of their employees, and they found that their employees take less sick days. They're more likely to come back the next year. They have increased job satisfaction. I wonder who is investing in the mental health, happiness, wellness of our teachers. And so those are some of the things that I mentioned. And also in terms of, the woo-woo factor is really, we know that social support networks help alleviate burnout. And so it's really an opportunity for us to foster normalizing wellness and self-care practices rather than perpetuating a narrative of teachers who are overextending themselves, going to work when they're sick, and staying at work until late at night. What brings you peace of mind when leaving the workday, especially after a hard day? Oh my gosh. So here's something that I found to be really helpful for me. After a hard day, I open up a gratitude folder that I've started to create, which is a folder of photos, notes, cards, moments that help bring me joy and help to remind me that even on the challenging days, that I'm still making a difference, that I'm still enough. And I encourage all of you to consider, can you create a space, even if it's just a folder, where it's your joy folder, your gratitude folder, where you open it up and it just makes your heart shine. Because there have been challenging days. I'll be honest, I had a tough day this past weekend, and I cracked that open. I looked at photos and mementos from kiddos and colleagues, and it was truly, truly helpful. I choose to give priority to each of my students by being kind, empathetic, and understanding. How will they feel when they think about me? Oh my gosh, exactly. Yes, I love that. I think it is just so important that we consider what we're modeling to our students in terms of our social emotional competencies, right? Like our students are looking to us to model, like, what does kindness look like? Not only to each other, but to ourselves. Right? What does understanding look like? Not only to each other, but to ourselves. What is empathy? Is different than sympathy, right? Empathy in terms of holding space and connecting and saying, I might not have an answer or a solution, but I'm just so glad you told me. I'm just so glad I'm here with you. And so I think that is just an incredible thing to add. Thank you for sharing. And another thing, I would invite each of you to offer this practice of gratitude, or using a sentence frame of I choose with a friend or a colleague, or maybe perhaps invite your students to offer an affirmation as well. I think that it's a great practice. And at the end of our day in kindergarten, we would gather together and share affirmations of gratitude and offer that for one another. So I am just so grateful for everyone who's participated, and your courage to share and to be a part of this community. I am so grateful again to the EdCan team, then being a part of the K-12 Workplace Wellbeing webinar series. Yes, and we will be offering, this session was recorded, so we will be offering the replay. It will be available. I am so grateful again to the EdCan team. Thank you again for letting me rock out on my saxophone. That was so much fun. And I am, again, I know I keep saying it, but wow, this has just been a wonderful experience, and I am so appreciative of this supportive community. So yes, be sure, if you're interested in learning more information about Happy Teacher Revolution, check out happyteacherrevolution.com. On Facebook and Instagram, we're at Happy Teacher Revolution. It's a long name, so on Twitter, it's at Happy Teacher HTR. And follow us along. And I am so grateful again to the EdCan team. And if you haven't had a chance to check out edcan.ca/well-at-work, please be sure to do so. And this was recorded, so share it with your networks as well. If you enjoyed the session, please make sure to fill out feedback and connect with us. I'm so grateful. And also, this is like a mini excerpt of what the in-person presentation originally was planned to be this past spring, but in light of recent events, I am just so grateful again to be able to offer this opportunity to share about Happy Teacher Revolution and the work that we're doing, as well as connect with all of you. And so I am just so grateful for the EdCan team again for offering this space for us online when we were unable to do it in person. And so this has been such a great experience. Yay! You made my day. This seriously made my day. I need to figure out another sweater though, but thank you so much. Oh, this was great. Yay! Oh, this makes me feel so good. Thank you all so much. This was so fun. Greetings from Baltimore. Thank you. Thank you so much, EdCan.